Hey guys, welcome back to the Lit Mag Lab podcast. I'm Jazz Marie, aka Vevna Forrow. So previously on the podcast, I was giving you a tour around Velicourt Lit Mag. So listen back to that episode if you're curious. I was also taking the time to discuss Kofi shops, right, and digital issue shop setups a little bit further on that podcast. And also for the first time, showing you Lit Mag that is actually leveraging Dapple Submission Manager, which I covered on this podcast last year. And so just trying to give you guys more examples of different lit mag setups and structures. And totally check that out if you're interested. So for today's episode, we will be checking out AGNI. That's AGNI. And it's a literary magazine named after the Vedic god of fire. And so you may recall from this podcast, you've been following it, right? I talked about Sofolio, which is a submission management system that launched last year, technically, and Dipty's on that, and also Agni. So Sofolio is founded by Liam Pierce, and one of the co-editors of Agni is actually William Pierce. So Liam Pierce is the son of William Pierce, so that's awesome. Yeah, I think it's really cool. What Agni does, they have a really diverse range of calls, and so I just wanted to cover it today and give you another example of a publication using Subfolio too, a little bit further, because I haven't covered like a bunch, right, or anything like that, using the Subfolio submission management system to date. Sure, I showed you Dippity and maybe a couple other publications, but most of those were on Submittable, right? And then the past episode was on Dapple. So this one, we'll take a look at Agni's Subfolio landing page and call setup. So let's get started here. So before we head over to the Chill Subs overview page, like I usually do and everything, right? We're going to read a little bit about Agni, right? So Agni is a literary magazine housed at Boston University and known among readers around the world as the writers group Penn put it, for publishing important new writers early in their careers, many of them translated into English for the first time. The print magazine appears twice yearly in late April and late October. A very small portion of each is reprinted on their site, but you'll also find a trove of writing published exclusively online, including categories like reviews and interviews that they tend not to feature in the print. So, most of the writing they publish comes to them unsolicited, and then they have, various authors and translators. And so it states here, I'm quoting this off their website. And just a reminder, as always, you can see my screen out on YouTube, Spotify, and elsewhere if you'd like to follow along. And just see what I'm talking about too, and touring and navigating websites and some platforms right along the way. So, cherishing their differences as much as the varieties they share, they are drawn to writers of every creed, race, orientation, gender, ethnicity, culture, national origin, age, and experience. They're especially proud when they can lay claim to being the first to publish a new writer or translator. So they really focus on diversity, it seems, at Agni. So that's great, yeah. And maintaining their quality, right? So, they said if you find any problems on their site, even so much as a misspelled word or quotation mark, right, they'd love to hear from you. And so they mention here, right? If you've contributed work to the magazine, it says take a moment to search using your full publishing name. And when titles come up, you click on your name to reach the author page. And then you should find a listing of every piece you've ever published with them. And the ones available online should be correct in every particular. Um, yeah, it says, that's cool. So, I know some search results are kind of finicky. So sometimes you have to type, a full name in or something like that. I've seen that even with my own website and elsewhere, right? So that's good that they have reminders in there for photographs and art, right? So the photographs on the site are by members of the Agni staff or by Kalman Zarbosky. So, I really like seeing publications leverage, original art, original photography. So that's awesome. So we're gonna head back over to Wikipedia real quick. So just for the record, right? They've been around since 1972, guys, and that's a very long time. That's 54 years, right? Over 5 decades. Can you imagine that? That's a very long time, and that's also super awesome. A lot of publications, haven't been around that long, and I can't name off a bunch of publications off the top of my head that have been around that long. Sure, there's a couple that come to my mind, right? There's some lit mags and out there that have been around since like the late 1800s, totally. And again, the thing about AGNI, right? They're affiliated with Boston University, right? That's their home. Some lit mags and journals do keep in mind, right? They are perhaps at times, and I'm not sure about Agni's, structure with Boston University, but just in general, some lit mags I mentioned on the podcast and elsewhere in the series, they are independent from the university, or they maybe have some affiliation with them, but the financial aspect of it is different, right? I've heard this term floating again in the lit mag world, right? A memorandum of understanding, meaning, it's a clear line is drawn between, how much financial support a university has over a lit mag or journal, right? Some lit mags, attached to universities or part of them, right, have to, do all the sourcing, funding themselves, right? Or they maybe get a certain amount of support from the university every year. But that's not always guaranteed, as we've seen, right? Some universities have totally slashed funding out of the blue, right? Which is unfortunate. But yeah, AGNI has been very long standing at Boston University, so that's awesome and great to see. Yeah, I love seeing that too. So, yeah, again, founded in 1972, originally as founded in 1972, originally as the Agni Review, right? And yeah, so here on Wikipedia, right, they're stating that Agni has like 240-page print issues annually, right? Each issue includes 30 to 40 contributors with a minimum print run of 2,500. And Agni has subscribers across the United States and in many other countries. It is carried by university and public libraries and is distributed to independent and chain bookstores within the US and Canada. Agni Online, Agni Online, an electronic extension of the print magazine, features new writing each week, reviews, blog posts, and interviews, and a small selection of each print issue's stories, poems, and essays. Agni has featured writers from all over the world, right? Yeah, so I see Malaysia there, China, South Korea, Egypt, and yeah, a lot of other places in Africa too, and really cool, yeah. And yeah, many other countries along with translations, right, in Chinese, Greek, and Old English, Polish. So yeah, we haven't really covered a lit mag or journal that does translations on this podcast to date that I can think of. So that's also partly why I wanted to cover Agni as well. So that's cool, right? And yeah, according to the magazine's websites, again, right, at Agni, they see literature and the arts as integral to the broad, engaged conversation that underwrites a vital society. Their poets, storytellers, essayists, translators, and artists lift a mirror to nature and the social world. They not only reflect their age, they respond. So again, the magazine's name comes from Agni, right? If I hover over this, right, right, it's showing the Hindu god of fire, right, the Vedic god of fire and the guardian of mankind. Agni's symbol, the flying monkey, was originally conceived by Aaron Belieu, or Belieu, that's Belieu, Aaron Eirn, first name, the magazine's managing editor at the time of its redesign, beginning with Agni 40 and Agni interns Richard Curtis and John Mulligan. It has been used since to represent the magazine. So yeah, they have a number of awards, right? Contributors have won, and again, right, they have a designated submission period schedule, right? September 1st to May 31st of each year, and we'll take a look at their submission guidelines too. It says here, Agni launched its online supplement in 2003 as an extension of the print journal. So yeah, that's been around 23 years here, right? That's awesome, Agni Online, right? An extension of the print journal. It posts new writing weekly. The website hosts more than 100,000 visitors per year. So yeah, I don't know when this was last updated. Oh yeah, it says this page was last edited on December 26, 2025. So yeah, this may be actually pretty current and recent, right? This update. Yeah. So that's a lot, And Agni holds several public events each year in the Boston area, and the new print issues are released with biannual events on the Boston University campus. So very cool. So yeah, that's basically Agni. You can see they have their ISSN, right, and here, right, and details. So again, biannual print, weekly online. So yeah, edited by Sven Burkertz and William Pierce. And yeah, so that's very cool. Very extensive history that Agni has. So definitely want to cover it. And they are a member of CLMP, by the way. And yeah, they have their mission statement here again, and awards and everything. So they're also listed on Duotrope. I'm not gonna, go through everything on Duotrope, but I will cover, what's on Chill Subs. Again, Duotrope's another great way to find out about, lit mags and journals, their, types of calls, their guidelines, and really another great resource, right? Besides Chill Subs and Submission Grinder and other ones I've discussed in this podcast. So they do mention here, right? They have no formula. They seek fresh vision and listen for dynamic voices that address their common reality. And yeah, so again, yeah, this is an overview of their calls, right? Temporarily closed at the moment, again, because they're open at certain times of the year, which I just mentioned, right? In September. And yeah, yeah, so they're open certain times of the year, right? So yeah, we see here, right, on Duotrope, it's stating, right, will be open to submissions from January 16th, 2026 through May 31st, 2026. Now, I don't know if that's entirely accurate. We'll check out Chill Subs, but yeah, they so on Chill Subs here, if we take a look here, right, I think it says here, right, their calls, right, some of them, right, their calls here, right, are open from September to May. Their September to May reading period. So yeah, I'm not sure if this changed or anything like that, but nevertheless, I would always recommend sticking to following what's on their website or submission management system. Duotrope and Chill Subs can be great places to reference, when calls open up. But yeah, this page was last updated, it looks like December 16th, 2025. So yeah, this could be accurate. I guess you could always head over January 16th and check out that. So it states unknown AI policy, but for the most part, most lit mags and journals I know, have a policy against AI. And I clicked into their submit landing page here on Subfolio. So it states here, right, again, they switched submission portals, right? They're now using Subfolio, and AGNI welcome submissions from September 1st through May 31st with a month on break from 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time on December 15th through January 15th. So yeah, they state here, right, they're looking for writing that catches experience before the crust of habit form. Poetry and prose that resist ideas about a certain kind of writing should do. And yeah, they seek out writers who tell their truths in their own words and convince them as they read that they've found something no one else could have written. And yeah, nearly everything they publish is unsolicited again. They encourage right submissions from everyone, wherever they may be located, published, unpublished, right? They will not consider writing that has already been published in English, whether in a book, magazine, newspaper, or an app, a website, a social media feed, or a publicly accessible online community. They consider only work written in English or translated into English. They require submissions to be the writer's or translator's own work and must be told up front in, the cover letter. If any element was written in collaboration with others, taken from found materials, or developed using any computer algorithm or artificial intelligence. So yeah, um, yeah, they just want you to be upfront about anything like that, and you can familiarize yourself, right? Again, with Agni by ordering a recent print issue, perusing or browsing the writing, giving the writing on Agni online a look over and reading it through. Include selected pieces from their decades in print, along with everything they've published exclusive online. The Agni blog features posts by writers who have appeared previously in Agni or Agni Online. Each submission in the main genres, fiction, nonfiction, poetry, and hybrid, costs $3 when sent through the portal of Subfolio, right? And yeah, so yeah, just keep that in mind. Submission man systems, right? It all depends. If a Litmer journal has fees or no fees, right? And yeah, so $3 isn't too bad. For submitting. It's a couple of dollars. Some lit magazine journals out there totally they have like insanely high fees, like $20, right? $15, but $3, it's not too bad. And yeah, on this podcast, I predominantly covered fee-free lit magazine journals, but occasionally I will cover some lit mags that have pretty cool structures, and they've been long-standing, and just to share different examples of ones out there. Now, again, AGNI is affiliated with university, and I haven't covered a ton of university affiliated lit magazine journals out there. I think I did share, right, the New Ohio Review on an episode way back, and then also, right, the Closure Meangent, right? So those two, but not like a ton. So yeah. So payments and rights, right? So it's always a good idea for a literary journal, whether they pay or not, to specify that, right? So they have it here. All submissions are considered for both print and online publication. Blog publication is limited to writers whose work has previously appeared in Agni or Agni Online. They buy first worldwide serial rights and pay $30 per printed or printed out page for accepted prose and $50 per page for accepted poetry. 50% or more in each category for translations, up to a maximum of 300. They also give a year subscription to Agni. In the case of print publication, each contributor receives 2 copies of the issue their work appears in, and they send up to 4 additional copies to friends or family. So that's really nice, yeah? You get also a year subscription to Agni. So yeah, I see a lot of lit magazine journals do this. I mentioned this even with Rattle, right? I remember one time I entered or submitted someplace. I still got a subscription, but it was $20. However, right, they're saying in this case, right, with an acceptance, right, you get all of this, right? So you get payment for your work, you get a year subscription to Agni, right? You go get also 2 contributor copies, right? And you can get copies to send to friends and family. So that's really nice. I know a lot of lit mags don't do that. Maybe they just, have a discount for the issue or, for contributors and, or they can't, send out issues. So they do that. Or maybe some lit mag journals just have a 1 copy per contributor. So it's nice that they give as many copies as possible to others, to share with fam and friends. So it's a nice thing to do for sure. So they actually do have 2 calls open at the moment, right? Proximity portfolio writing, proximity portfolio art. So I don't know what that entails, but it looks like it closes May 31st, 2026 at 8:59 p.m. Yeah, showing on my screen. I'm in PST right now. So, yeah, Agni, right, has a history of assembling portfolios that bring attention to rich, often underappreciated categories of writing. Senior editor Shushi Saraswat and guest editors Rue Freeman and Preeti Taneja are co-editing the latest issue, Proximity, an Agni portfolio of writing and art by women of color. Oh, so that's awesome. I didn't know this. I think from when I was on Chill Subs just a few moments ago, I didn't see anything like this, so that's really cool. Yeah, so this portfolio gathers women writers and artists of color from around the world who are committed to using their voices through written or visual art to excavate and interrogate their connections within the system of power that affects us all, both globally and at home. Proximity might be defined as geographic, political, linguistic, historical, embodied, environmental, generational, intimate. What they do risk and what they yearn for. What do we risk and what do we yearn for when we engage with oppression and injustice through art? How do we support and challenge each other toward liberation? So yeah, the editors seek fiction, nonfiction, poetry, and visual art that is fearless and unapologetic and inspires them to enter a radical new canon. They welcome works in translation with a preference for translator who also identify as women of color. No reading fee will be charged. So yeah, so I think this is nice. I've seen some things where some lit magazine journals, right, hold free calls or special editions like this. I think this is really cool, right? So an assemblage of portfolios, right, and women of color writing and art by women of color. So that's really cool. And yeah, um, there is a separate subfolio category established for proximity portfolio art. It says to submit art, please exit the category, enter there, right? Yeah. Um, they anticipate publishing the portfolio in the fall of 2026 issue. They anticipate publishing the portfolio in the fall 2026 issue of Agni. This call will close on May 31st, 2026. So yeah, again, sometimes lit magazine journals have some really cool calls like the proximity portfolio of art. And yeah, so when I accidentally clicked on that, anyways, I accidentally clicked on it, but it takes you to the landing page that Agni has on Subfolio. So I really love the customization you can do on Subfolio, right, with everything. I think that's really cool. You can see Agni has this, right, from an issue cover, it looks like, right? I think that's number 99 showing there. So that's really cool. And yeah, so we're going to go back because I accidentally clicked on that for you guys. But I wanted just to expand the guidelines here. So Yeah, proximity portfolio art. I'm not going to read through all of it here, but it says here, right, this is strictly for art, right? And this is for writing. So they have it divided out. So the art call here for the portfolio, proximity portfolio call, right? Again, closes the same time, May 31st, 2026. Um, it says for the digital section of the portfolio, they are especially seeking pieces that utilize the strengths of digital curation, including but not limited to audio and visual work. Because their submission system limits files to 4 megabytes each, it says please include larger material in the form of a Dropbox or similar link. So they're okay with that, yeah, because sometimes file types, yeah, can be, quite heavy. So you can do workarounds to that, right? Nowadays, thanks to technology. For video submissions, please include details, runtime, year, title, location, filming, and your name, along with a hyperlink to your video in a PDF or Word document. For portfolio inquiries, including questions about digital formats, right? They have a dedicated email address for it too. And yeah, then it has, feel free to upload as many as 6 files, whether image files, audio, video files, PDFs, or Word docs. For video submissions, right, again, include all of that stuff I just mentioned earlier, right? The year, title, runtime, location, name, along with a hyperlink to your video, PDF, or Word doc, and a short artist statement, no more than 350 words, about the work in your cover letter. It says you're welcome again to submit art, even if you have writing consideration with them too. And it says, please do not submit work they've already considered another form. So yeah, I think this call is really cool that they have, proximity portfolio of writing, proximity portfolio of art, focusing on writing and art by women of color. And there's no fee to submit to this. So yeah, it looks like it's going to be open for quite some time, May 31st, 2026. Now, I know some lit magazine journals, when they reach a very, very high volume, sometimes they close early, but in this case, it looks like they're sticking to May 31st, 2026 on Sunday. So yeah, a call to check out if you're listening to this podcast, and I think it's pretty cool. Again, for writing and that art by women of color. I think that's awesome that they're doing that and no fee for that. So not necessarily true, right? On their chill subs page, for example, I was just looking at their overview stats, right? It says fee here $3, but sometimes they do calls like that. Some really cool ones where there's no fee to partake in. So I think that's really cool. I don't know if they've had other ones in the past like that, but that's nice either way. So do check it out. Yeah, so now we're gonna, we'll eventually go back on their website and tour a little bit further, but I want to take the time to read through their calls too with you guys. And yeah, so it looks like they've been bookmarked 1,774 times on Chill Subs. Just a reminder, you can see my screen out on Spotify, YouTube, and elsewhere. And yeah, just some of the stats and things I'm showing around. So it says in terms of recommendations, right? Others have rated it as a career builder, great editors, a damn good read. I just love them. Action inclusive, beautiful design, new writer friendly, bold, and weird. So yeah, that's awesome. They have a lot of positive reviews. Academic, right? Literary type, top tier stuff, not Paris review, but close enough for the vibe. And the acceptance rate is 1.46%, guys. Yeah. Yeah. So it's really tough to get an AGNI. I recall even like through Chill Subs, right? Their sub club newsletter. Somewhere they had said AGNI is, super, super tough to get into, like on the list of some of the toughest lit mags to get an acceptance from. But it's challenging nevertheless, right? And AGNI also, again, keep in mind, I think I saw on their YouTube channel or somewhere, I can't remember, stating they had received somewhere between 10,000 and 20,000 submissions in a single year, like 2, 3 years ago, I can't remember, or over 14,000 submissions, which is a lot, in a single given year. So they get a lot of submission volume at AGNI. So yeah, it's really tough to get an acceptance. It's showing an average, reported submitters through those who use the chill subs tracker to input the decision that they got back, right, and keep tabs on it, right, 1.46%. And yeah, so again, they have print issues. The editor response time reported is showing 120 days to get back to others. Most have reported 115 days. So yeah, they do nominate for prizes. They accept simultaneous submissions, right? And yeah, so again, yeah, affiliate of Boston University, right? Founded in 1972, again, way, way back. And yeah, AGNI is again one lit mag out there that has, participated in nomination events, or entered in contributors' work in various nomination events, and they have ended up, right, contributors winning awards, right? So Best of the Net, Pushcart Prize, Best American Essays, Best American Poetry, Best American Fiction, the O. Henry Prize. Now, a new one here that I haven't discussed before on the podcast is Wigleaf's Top 50. So that may be one to look into, or maybe to add to my list. I don't know. I haven't really covered Wigleaf's Top 50 or mentioned that on the podcast. That's a new one here that I'm not aware of. I mean, it may not be new, but it's new to the podcast. I mean, mentioning it, you know? So that's one to note down there, and I will check that out further after this episode. Industry rankings. So yeah, they've been on all the industry ranking lists, the main ones, right? For sure. I don't see fish lists on here, but they are on, right, Erica Krau's top 500, right? I'm not going to read all of them off. You can see it on my screen, but 20 out of 500 for Erica Krause's top 500. For poetry, Clifford Garsting, 18 out of 130. And Brecht, top 1000 poetry, 16 out of 1000, right? And then there are other lists here, right? Yeah, 9 industry ranking lists they were on. And yeah, they have their full masthead entered here, which is nice to see. So everyone in who's part of the publication is listed here, right, currently. And yeah, lit mags, agents love, lit mags that love personal essays, impressive bylines for your literary bios. So they appear in those collections, right? And yeah, now let's head over and check out their calls. Now they have a lot of calls, right, that they do at AGNI. So these aren't open at the moment, right? Just again, a reminder, the only calls open for AGNI at this very moment are, proximity portfolio writing and proximity portfolio art. So it's always a good idea to refer to, right, the Lit Mag Journal's website or their submission man system, see their open calls, and to look at that, right? So yeah, Duotrope and Chill Subs are still great places to, find out more information about lit magazine journals and things like that. But I think it's always a good idea to, also just double check the website, the submission calls that are actually open at the time. And yeah, so I don't know if these dates are entirely accurate, but again, they don't have the proximity call plugged in here on Shieldstub or anything like that. So just keep that in mind. But anyways, I'm gonna read what some of their typical submission calls are, the guidelines for you. So this may be a bit of a read, but I want to take the time to do so because I think it helps to, if you're starting your lit mag or journal, listening to this, right, different examples of calls and guidelines founding editors have set up or facilitated, right? So let's start off with poetry submissions. So it states here, right, please limit your submission to no more than 5 poems, and please submit only once during their September to May reading period, right, for poetry submissions. And it says poetry submissions must be uploaded in a single document. Please do not submit revisions of work they've already considered, and they're interested in free verse, blank verse, visual poetry, prose poems, shaped or concrete poems, and formal or structured poetry. They have no word count limits, though space is at a premium and length sometimes affects their decisions. Formatting notes, it says please add page numbers. So yeah, up to 5 pieces, pays $50 to $300 per page and a $3 fee for that. And you can see here, right, for these calls, right, it's stating opens in 256 days. But again, they do have some calls open at this very moment. And Duotrope was showing that they were going to open other calls back up, I think January 16th. So I don't know about that. But this is what they have on Chill Subs to date. And of course, you can always, monitor their, something really cool about AGNI and other lit magazine journals on Subfolio, right? If you're interested, right, and there's a particular lit mag journal you want to follow on Subfolio, right, their Discover page, you can go and view submission calls. And I'm not signed in right now or anything like that, but there's a notify me section here, so you can get notifications on any open calls, right? So if I wasn't sure about a place's calls or I'm seeing different dates and stuff, yeah, you would subscribe to the notify me section. Not all lit magazine journals have this, right? It's just for maybe those on Subfolio. Even a few other submission man systems have that feature. It's very useful, when you want to stay in the loop on different calls and things like that, right? So yeah. So that's poetry submissions, right? So let's head over and scroll down to essay and nonfiction. So the pay for that is $30 per page. Again, a $3 fee. It says, please limit your submission to one nonfiction piece and please submit only once during their September to May reading period. If you are sending flash nonfiction pieces of less than 1,000 words each, they welcome up to 3 in a single file. Please do not submit revisions of work they've already considered. They do not publish academic essays or purely journalistic writing. They are interested in essays, think pieces, and memoir. They will consider excerpts if they read as if they were meant to stand alone. And they have no word count limits for essay, nonfiction pieces, right? And yeah, or memoir or anything like that, right? They will consider excerpts. They will, yeah, and they have no word counts, right? Though space is at a premium and length sometimes affects their decision, right? Formatting notes, it says please double space, use gets cut off here. Let's see. Use 12-point font and add page numbers, right? To pretty standard, right? Times New Roman, right? For that, and double space. They also do reviews. So it looks like here we have nonfiction essay review, right? General reviews, right? So please send only one review or review pitch. You are welcome to submit a review even if you have work under consideration in another genre or category. It says, please do not submit revisions of work they've already considered. And again, they do not publish academic essays or purely journalistic writing. So some reminders here are always good. They have it, each call, that's listed out all the requirements, right? Please double space, use 12-point font, and add page numbers. And the pay is $30 per page. No fee to that for review, it's showing. Conversations. So it says, please send only one conversation or interview, right? A nonfiction long read interview. You are welcome to submit an interview even if you have work on consideration in another genre. Please do not submit revisions of work they've already considered. Formatting notes, double space, use 12-point font, and add page numbers. No fee for that, right? Pay is $30 per page for conversation. Next, we have flash fiction. So it says, please limit your submission to one story and please submit only once during their submission to May reading period. Again, if you are sending flash fiction pieces of less than 1,000 words each, and they welcome up to 3 in a single file. Please do not submit revisions, again, of work they've reconsidered. They do not publish genre romance, horror, mystery, or science fiction. However, they are open to writing that borrows elements from any of those. They will consider excerpts if they read as if they were meant to stand alone. They have no word count limits, though space is at a premium and length sometimes affects their decisions. So it says up to 1,000 words, up to 3 pieces. Pay is $30 to $300 per page. Fee is $3. So yeah, they have a really large payment amount for work, right, at AGNI. So that's awesome. Not a lot of places can do that. And yeah, $3 a fee. Again, it's not too bad. So yeah, again, formatting gets cut off sometimes, but please double space, use 12-point font, add page numbers again. And fiction, short stories, right? So again, they don't want to see revisions of anything they've already considered. Again, just some reminders that they do not publish genre romance, horror, mystery, or science fiction, but they are open to anything, any writing that borrows elements from any of these. They will consider excerpts if they read as if they were meant to stand alone. They have no word count limits, those spaces at premium and length sometimes affects their decisions. Again, same thing with formatting notes, right? As the flash fiction call. Now, with flash fiction, again, right, that's up to 1,000 words, but with fiction short stories, right, they said there are no word count limits, right? And yeah, but keep in mind, yeah, so just keep that in mind. Yeah, always read carefully the limits and things like that. I've seen writers mix up like limits and stuff, and you want to be very careful about that. So again, up to 1,000 words for flash fiction, right? And yeah, they welcome up to 3 in a single file. But fiction short story, right, is different, right? And yeah, so they have genre benders. So it's showing here fiction short experimental hybrid. Please send only one hybrid piece and please submit only once during their September to May reading period for this. Please do not submit revisions of work they've already considered. They do not publish genre romance, horror, mystery, or science fiction. However, they are open to writing, again, that borrows elements from any of these. So, see what AGNI does here. They put reminders and repeat things again for others to, make sure they're aware of the guidelines, right? And I think it's good to do that. And yeah, they will consider excerpts if they read as if they are meant to stand alone. They have no word count limits for genre benders, though again, spaces at premium and length sometimes affects their decisions. Formatting notes, so double space, use 12-point font, add page numbers. It says, however, please do not double space any lineated verse contained in the piece. And lastly, we have art. So again, AGNI features a single artist in each print issue with the cover and an 8-page glossy insert. In your submission of visual art, it says feel free to upload as many as 6 files, up to 4 megabytes each, whether image files, PDFs, or Word docs. Yeah, whether it be image files, PDFs, or Word docs, you're welcome to submit art even if you have writing under consideration with them. And please do not submit work they've already considered in another form. Up to 6 pieces, some payment for art, no fee. So yeah, that's really cool. So AGNI is a prime example of a literary magazine, right, affiliated with a university that has a diverse range of calls. Now, there are some lit magazine journals out there that just do poetry, just publish short stories, right, or even some out there that do nothing but haikus, right. But I think it's really nice to see a publication do different, forms of writing and genres, and different forms of writing and calls, right. Very diverse, right. Overall, AGNI is, it appears to be. And yeah, now I haven't submitted to AGNI, not to my knowledge, in the past or anything like that. However, I think a couple years ago I did check out their website, or at some point in time when I was diving back into the literary world. So yeah, just wanted to take the time to read through it. I think it helps, others who are starting their lit manga journal to see different types of guidelines and calls that are existing, and different lit mags out there, right? Whether it be online and print, AGNI is both online and print. You don't have to do that. Again, some lit mags and journals, end up discontinuing print even, or some lit mags and journals, are strictly online. So it's really up to you what you want to do. And I mentioned this on the podcast, even other places, right, in past episodes. Some lit mags and journals do maybe an annual anthology, right, and are mostly predominantly online. Or as AGNI does, right, I think it's really cool. They have some pieces that are exclusively online, right, and then they also have, their print issue series, and it's a lot of fun, right, to do that. So yeah, let's check out some other things here. So again, accepts simultaneous submissions, accepts translations. They have some notes on formatting, right? Times New Roman, bio under 100, right? Cover letter length, just the basics, right? Third person bio. And yeah, so under stats, right? Again, this is not by any means all of the submissions AGNI's ever received, but just to show you, right, that this breakdown is pretty cool, right? Those who have a chill subs profile and use the chill subs tracker, right, to keep tabs on their decisions, right, at litmags or journals, right? We're showing here 684 to date, right, submissions tracked, and from that, guys, just 5 accepted, right? Just 5, right? Rejected 334, pending 231, withdrawn 27, didn't respond to. So very, very tough. It's very, very tough again to get into AGNI and acceptance, but that doesn't mean, that shouldn't, scare you, right? There are some lit mags and journals out there that have very low acceptance rates, but, some writers I know, they kept trying, right? And eventually they were able to get acceptance at maybe their dream publication, right? It's possible. So don't let numbers like this scare you, but just keep it in mind, it's very, very tough to get acceptance. Again, also AGNI receives a bunch of submissions every single year, right? I think, again, I recall somewhere between 10,000 and 15,000 submissions in a single year. A couple years ago, I heard, or between 10 and 20,000 submissions in a single year that they, received. So don't feel down on yourself if you get a rejection, with a place that has a very tight acceptance rate, like 1.46% or something like that you're reporting here. There's no editor reported date here, but yeah, the chill sub tracker stats pretty reflective of that. Again, even chill subs has, in the past shared a list through subclub of like some of the lit mags and journals in the world that are the hardest to even receive an acceptance from. And yeah, so I think it always does help to see, and read pieces, that have been published in the past to get a feel of print issues, right? So always a good idea. Let's head back over to AGNI's website and just do a tour of it, right? Let's check it out because I have not been on their website in quite some time. So yeah. So here we have, right, online print, about contact, right? I already covered the about section. So you can see we have it divided up by fiction, essays, beneath that, right, poetry, conversations, reviews, blog, portfolio. And yeah, so we scroll down, right, we can see issue 102, right? So yeah, crisis and talismans, the threaded objects of Leah prepare front and issue, intent on noticing, holding, and putting forward. So yeah, we have pieces here. Now the thing Agni does here, you can see some pieces are hyperlinked, or one is, right. One is hyperlinked, and then the others are not, right. This poetry one is not hyperlinked. This essay is not. Oh, so yeah, this one in the middle, I'm gonna mispronounce names, but yeah, the purple house, as you can see on my screen, right? If we click into that, right, this is a piece that's free to read, right? From Agni 102, right? Number 102. So that's cool, right? And yeah, so if we go back to the page here, you can see then it changed, right? So we have another piece, right, that is also available to read for free, right? Another essay, right? Stone of Hope. So yeah, I think that's nice. And if we click on see the full issue, so they have the whole, right, it looks like table of contents here. So they have some freebie pieces out here to read. So not everything's like, strictly in the print issue to read. And I think it is important to do that. So there's, have freebies right on the website to read, and pieces they can see examples of what Agni's looking for. Maybe even you can order the issue, subscribe even. Let's see what happens when you click on subscribe. So they have a subscription set up here, which is nice. I'm not sure what they're using for their subscription setup at all at Agni. However, this is just to show you, right? Every lit mag journal is a little bit different in terms of platforms they use for subscriptions. I do have an episode where I mentioned a couple different ways to facilitate that. But to be honest, I don't have a lot of experience with print subscriptions, right? Mostly I have experience with facilitating digital subscriptions and platforms like that. But yeah, that's nice. You can see here, right? 3 years is showing, right? 22% off, 2 free back issues, 6 issues for $79. And yeah, and then you can choose your plan, right? Um, they also have 2 years, 19% off, 1 free back issue, 4 issues for $55. And then a 1 year subscription, right? 14% off, 2 issues, $29. And it looks like there's a discount code here. And yeah, so that's cool, right? So very easy setup. And yeah, I'm not sure what they're using for that, but yeah, in terms of subscription, but still a really clean setup. Really like seeing lit mags that do this table of content style, right? Where you're able to see the full issue. I never did that in my lit mag, Dippity, but I think that's a really nice, layout. I've shared with you on this podcast a few lit mags and journals out there that do this, right? A full table of contents, right? We have the editor's note here, which is great, right? In the front. So yeah, from William Pierce. So yeah, that's really cool. Um, we have essays, right? Hybrids, so poetry, right? All of that, right? Laid out. Yeah, so fiction, essays, hybrid poetry, right? We have that all laid out. Everything that's an issue, the art feature, right? So very cool. And yeah, and then all the team members, right, who made the issue possible. And yeah, that's really awesome. So yeah, they have an archive section, right? And yeah, so the current issue, right, you can go to it, right? Very easy. Order issues again. It takes you out to this full, listing of all of them, right? 13.95. Now, issue pricing is going to vary at Lit Mags and Journals, so I think it does help to see a couple examples. For most part, I've seen some Lit Mags and Journals price things around the length of an issue and things like that, right? And typically, with a series or lit mags or journals, you should be consistent in pricing, right? Overall, if it's a print issue versus an anthology, right, that's different. And chapbooks are priced differently from magazine issues, right, for presses. But yeah, 13.95, that's not too bad. I think some publications out there, right, within $20, I think that's pretty fair and reasonable. I've seen our lit mag dippity, right, our print issues got super high at some point in time through our print provider when we distributed them. Wasn't super cost friendly, so that's why I went more so towards digital subscriptions, which were very very cost friendly, right? Just with the under $10, right? And then there's a platform subscription fee, but still not bad at all. um you know yeah. So, yeah, so 13.95 is not bad at all. And with the lit mag or journal series, right, you should be consistent with the pricing, the size of each issue, right? And the sections, right, in your table of contents. So yeah, Agni does all of that. They have all of their issues, right, available for selection, right? Let's go all the way back to issue 1, guys. I'm just curious. Or how far back does it go? Oh, so it looks like it goes up to, well, we have here Agni number 8, right? So yeah, that's cool, right? I wonder what happens when I click the question mark. Oh yes, that's cool. So this was Agni number 8, guys. So I really like seeing, like, the evolution of a lit mag journal over the years, right? If you go through all the covers and the art and the style. So you can see here, right, it says the Agni Review, right? That's what it was formerly called. So I think that's really cool, right? And they have yeah, so yeah, that's what Agni number 8, or one of their earliest issues, look like from way, way back. And yeah, and you can click on the question mark and it pops up, right, each issue. Yeah, it looks like back then the cover price was showing $2.50, guys, right? But yeah, now we're in 2026 and the future, right? Flash forward, right? Multiple decades later, right? Everything's changed. Costs have gone up all over the world, but yeah, 13.95 is not bad at all. I'd say, issues that are within $20 or, under $30. I've seen some issues or some large art publications even, but 20-25 bucks within that range, not too bad. And yeah, this is a physical print issue, by the way, right? So that's awesome. And yeah, so I really liked clicking through, covers and seeing the cover art, and yeah. So they have pretty interesting cover art, across the board. Some really cool cover art selections they've done, I think it's really nice. It's not AI art or anything like that. It's original artwork and really beautiful, right? So that's really cool. Yeah, I'm not gonna click through all the covers for you guys, but yeah, it's fun just to do that too, to see what each issue is about over the course of Agni's history, right? Yeah, these covers are really interesting and cool, right? I love abstract art too. I love photography covers, illustrative covers. So yeah, they definitely have a mixture, right? Absolutely, of all their covers and everything, right? And you can see how they evolved, right, over the years with the style of Agni, on some of their issues, right? I was looking at the issues in the 30s, and they showed the back cover of some of these as well. Yeah, so that's awesome. Yeah. Yeah, and this is number 99. You may recall that from Agni's, right? A subfolio landing page, right, that they had for the sign in. And yeah, so that's really cool, right? And then they state what each issue is about, right? 99 was about contributor struggle of displacement and home, belonging and having to establish, resisting, and being able to simply be. And yeah, so that's awesome, right? And yeah, I'm just scrolling through for you guys a little bit, just checking out different covers. Agni number 59 was the hand one. So this sort of reminds me of, the Adams Family and, the Hand or Wednesday, right? That series. I grew up watching like the classics and stuff, but I didn't finish that new spin-off or the reboot with Wednesday. So yeah, the Hand, Breath of the Unknown. Yeah, so that's cool, right? This consisted of fiction, essays, poetry again, right? And yeah, an art feature as well, photography and fine art of swimming. Essay, right, by Arno Raphael Minikinen. So very cool. I love seeing, again, publications incorporate art, photography, and feature it, right? It's a very cool, right? Very clean and great website design that Agni has. And yeah, so we covered that. We covered the current issue archive. And I think it's really cool, right? That you can easily order back issues like this. And yeah, I wonder what issue number 1 looked like, though. I do wonder. I'm sure I could look it up online. But yeah, it looks like number 8 is like the earliest one you could order. And yeah, and then there's shipping cost on top of that. But yeah, they do have subscription options as well. So yeah, I think these are strictly ordering print, right, versions of the issues. They do have Agni online, right, to read as well, but not all of it, right, in terms of the print issues, right. Some pieces are available to read for free and some aren't, right. And yeah, so they have some cool ones. Absolutely, you can see the titles and yeah, again, always a good idea to have some free, publications for others to read and, to get a feel for the issues. So yeah, we have online, right? 2025 from last year, right? Some reviews here, right? And blog posts, and yeah. So yeah, that's cool, right? I won't go through, all of these, of course, but just clicking in to look at them. So we have right? Fiction, right? And yeah, so the Agni blog, right, is it says revelations beyond the printed page. Agni's writers engaged in wide-ranging discussion. So they have various features here, right? The X-ray at 130, four writers consider the X-ray on its 130th birthday. So yeah, and then like self-portrait with a blade of grass, and they have things tied to topographies of the Silk Roads, and yeah, and the other ones here, right? And it's all a square grid, and you can access, right, the pages, right? So bottom navigation, right, numbers, previous next, right, very organized. And yeah, you can see they've done a lot of blog posts, right, way back, right? There's some I've jumped to some in 2018 even, right? So yeah, covered that. Now online section, right? Yeah. So if I scroll back to the main online section here, again, portfolio, right? This is the portfolio series they have. They did a portfolio of British and Irish poems, a portfolio of work and translation, right? And yeah, so deeper representations exploring context and mapping linkages. So I think that's really cool. Again, don't forget, if we go back on Subfolio, right, to open calls here, right, and it's right, they have these proximity portfolio writing and art calls, right, two separate buckets for them. And yes, so yeah, do check it out again if you're interested. Again, that one is an Agni portfolio of writing art by woman of color. So yeah, proximity, right? Very cool. So yeah, again, and Agni, right? So there is a way to avoid paying the fee, right? They have mailing instructions, but still, postage and stuff like that. They do state here if you have, problems with that or any difficulty, right? You can contact them specifying your genre. And yeah, I don't know what that really entails. I know some publications out there, right, have fee waivers and things they do or accommodations, but $3 isn't bad. And yeah, it's totally. Some lit magazine journals till today, they don't even use a submission man system. They actually just strictly have everything mailed in. But Agni is saying, yeah, there are mailing instructions that they have, as well, right? Paper mail on their website, which takes you out here, paper submissions and the address, right, and everything. And they have how to withdraw, right? If you're submitting through Subfolio, right? Payments and rights again are reiterated on their website, right? So they have reminders on all of their guidelines and everything, right? Under the submit section. And yeah, so again, the reading periods is showing September 1st to May 31st. However, they have those two calls open at the moment, right, up to May. So yeah, and then you have a submit button, right? Response time 2 to 4 months. Reminders here. Again, you can submit through electronic and postal. Some lit magazine journals do discontinue mail submissions too, but and electronic. I think electronic's pretty common nowadays. Sending it through submission man system of some kind. Yeah. Simultaneous submissions are accepted. Of course, you just want to withdraw if it's been right or accepted elsewhere. Yeah. No hard and fast length limit, it's stating. However, they do have limits specified on chill subs, and they're, typically within like subfolio's category buckets and things like that, right? So yeah, they have a job section, and it's pretty typical for most lit magazine journals affiliated with the university to have that, internships. Sometimes, students, right, partake in lit mags even. So yeah, so it says here the staff of Agni teaches literary editing and magazine publishing through a vibrant internship program. So that's awesome, right? They have an internship program at Agni. Their editorial assistants help with proofreading, order fulfillment, database management, webmastering, and many other tasks central to the magazine's operations. They gain copy editing experience, print and online publishing experience with WordPress and other platforms, and a renewed sense of relevance and wonder of literature. They require only a love of reading and an eye and ear for detail. So yeah, that's awesome. Spring and fall, right? So they have spring and fall internships that are limited to Boston University undergraduates and creative writing graduate students, with very few exceptions. They have a summer application deadline, which is March 1st, and they offer a limited number of volunteers internships that begin on June 1st and end around August 15th. Priority goes to undergraduates entering their junior or senior year, and yeah, and then they have instructions on if you're interested. So That's awesome. I think it's really cool. Again, it goes to show you can gain a lot of experience by, doing an internship at a lit mag or journal, right? And I covered in the series, right, how to find internships at lit mags and journals, right? And things like that. So yeah, for the most part, right, this is exclusive to, right, those who are, Boston University undergraduates and creative writing graduate students. However, right, there are plenty of lit magazine journals out there. They have volunteer calls, they have internships. So, CLMP, right, the Community of Literary Magazine Presses, has a great job page as well. A lot of lit magazine journals also post calls for jobs. Just a reminder through like their submission management system. Could be Subfolio, could be Submittable, Dapple, or any of the other ones I mentioned, right? Dual Summa. But just some ways to find some job opportunities or volunteer, work in this field, right, to gain experience. You can learn a lot for sure and apply it to, maybe a future job one day or something long term. Some lit magazine journals, I think, even right onboard or hire some staff, right, whether it be an intern or volunteer and bring them on board, right, sometimes even, right. It happens. So yeah, it can be a great learning experience. So, advertising. So, yeah, advertising is another great way that lit magazine journals can sustain themselves, or it can help even pay writers for their work, cover operational expenses, even contributor copies, sending those out. All of those things are very, very costly, right? Website maintenance. And yeah, so advertise in AGNI. Now, I showed this a little bit on the after dinner conversation episode. They also had an advertise section. Plenty of other lit mags and journals do this. So it says here, right, it looks like they have print, ads, right? And some lit mags and journals do online ads too on their website too and things like that. So quoting this off, right, as of 2026, January 2026, reading this, right? So as a part of Boston Publishers Consortium, BPC, Agni sells ad space in conjunction with Harvard Review. Rates are for a full or half page ad in both of these twice yearly. Boston based magazines, which reach a combined readership of 6,000 in New England, nationwide, and internationally. So a full page rate is showing $500, half a page is 350, and then they have the specifications for it, right? I'm not going to read all of this off, but they do have, insertion, right? Confirm order dates like January 25th, ad copy due February 5th, publication date April 30th, approximate. They have fall insertion, right? Confirm order July 15th, ad copy due August 1st, publication date October 30th. So they have a very, specific schedule for this that they follow, right? To stay on track. And that's great, right? Again, advertising is another great way to sustain a publication, right? Can be in print ads, half page, full page, um, you know, things of that nature, or even, you could do it online. I think online ads on a publications page, I'm not a huge fan of that, ads popping up. It disrupts the reading experience. So, yeah, in print ads are really cool, to do. We see them a lot in lit magazine journals and magazines in general. So, it's pretty common. And yeah, next up we have a newsletter, right? The Agni newsletter. It's always a good idea to have a newsletter for your lit mag or journal. They state how many emails you'll get, approximately per month, right? Too, so they're not bombarding others' inboxes. But you can get exclusive essays, by their editors, discount offers, chances to win free issues, updates on print issues, events, web postings, and other ventures. You can unsubscribe anytime. And yes, a lot of lit magazine journals I showed you in a couple of podcast episodes, right? Many lit magazine journals use Substack today for their newsletter or publication series, or even convert the blog space of whatever platform they're using and use that to share visual art and poems through, even, or sometimes fiction, flash fiction essays even. So every lit mag journal has a is not on the same newsletter platform. I mentioned Beehive. I mentioned some of the other ones out there, pros and cons. Especially I was talking about that on the Paloma Lit Mag episode a few episodes back. So do listen to 103 if you're interested, and some of the other episodes where I discuss website builders in that episode too. Yeah, I was talking a little bit towards the end of some episodes, right? That website builder platform titled episode, the different type of like newsletter type of platforms out there. And even the description, I drops quite a lot of those. And yeah, so I think it was episode 72 where I was discussing like website builder platforms. To the very end of that episode, I was showing you some examples of, newsletters, and various platforms, right? Aside from Substack, right? I was talking about Ghost, Beehive, and even dropped a bunch in that episode description, right, of other ones that maybe could be applied for that aside from website builders, right? And yeah, it's really up to you, what you want to use for facilitating a newsletter. Substack's really easy to set up and use for that, communications, and no cost down or anything like that, as it grows over time. And quite a few publications use their website's built-in newsletter, functionality, but there are limitations there with some website builders in terms of like the plans, how many emails you can send out to how many, right, and things of that nature, right, to everyone subscribed to the mailing list. So you want to be mindful about that. But Substack's really easy to use, and another great place to, you can do a lot of different things with your Substack, and yeah, and build a newsletter from it. So really up to you what you want to use. Just choose something you're comfortable on, but always essential to have a newsletter from the get-go when you start Lit Mag Journal. That's something I didn't do right away with my Lit Mag Journal, and yeah, a year later with my own, starting up a newsletter, and yeah, and really focusing on growing a mailing list, right? So yeah, just something to not forget about. It is important to stay in touch with everyone, keep them updated and the loop, what's going on and issue releases. It's a really great way to do that, right? A lot of contributors, they follow Lit Mag or Journal, once, the journey with it, So a newsletter is a great way to keep in touch with others and to, stay informed about upcoming calls, even events, all of that, any major changes, right, to a publication that you are, have followed for quite some time, right? So yeah, I think that's pretty much it. They have a contact section, always good to have, right? And if we scroll to the bottom of their website, right, they have all the genres here again, in a good layout, right? So the Friends of Agni. So yeah, the Friends of Agni, right? I'm not going to scroll through this entire list or anything like that, but if you go on this page, you'll see, names of benefactors, sponsors, those who have contributed, several $100s even to, help and financially support Agni, right? So it can be super expensive setting up print issues, contributor copies, even tackling international shipping, all of that, right? And the cost of the website, right? And all of that, right? And a lot of lit magazine journals have, right, submission management system bills. However, Agni's on Subfolio, and Subfolio is very cost friendly, very easy to use. So that's not, a huge deal or anything like that. And yeah, predominantly, I think print expenses are very, very high nowadays, for most lit magazine journals, especially sending out contributor copies internationally. So it's not easy to do that, right? And they're also paying writers for their work, right? Very rather large amounts, So yeah, and they have awards, history, right, authors, right. I'm just clicking through the page. So they have this nice contributor section, alphabetized, a really nice layout and setup. Yeah, so that's cool, right? And their history and mission, right? And again, that's cool, right? And yeah, I'm not gonna read through all of this or anything, but you can look into it more, if you're curious. They have the staff section, right? There's William Pierce, right? And everyone on board. And there's Sven Burkertz. I apologize if I mispronounced any name. Their whole team, right? Their senior editor, right? And nonfiction editors, right? Assistant editors, reviews editor, their blog editor. Yeah, they have their whole editorial team here, their advisory board. And yeah, I think it's always a good idea, if you're starting a Lit Matter Journal, to again familiarize yourself with the different, roles that are possible. If you want to build out a team or staff, right? Yeah, so that's really cool, right? So yeah, I'm not going to click into each one, but I typically just do it as a very, very small team, but very cool. You can read more about William Pierce and Sven Burkertz and the whole team, right? Senior editor, even Suchi Saraswat, and their other editors, and their editorial assistants and contributing editors, even, right? So they have a very extensive team, behind Agni and keeping it up and going, right? Again, it's been around, 50 plus years, so it's really cool. They have a very organized setup. Absolutely. They have a donate section here. And yeah, so yeah, always a good idea to, have a donation of some kind. It looks like when you donate, right? So yeah, it looks like when you donate, right, and you become a patron, sponsor, benefactor, publisher, writer, donor, right, they give you different things, like some of it entails getting a subscription, right? Your name in Agni, right? Yeah. So yeah, the more you contribute, right, the longer the free subscription you get, right? So yeah, that's awesome, So benefactors like $500, if you donate that, right, you get a 3-year free subscription. Your name and Agni exclusive events, and up to $1,000 contributions, 5-year free subscription, and yeah, patron 1-year free subscription, sponsor 250 2-year free subscription, right? Again, your name and Agni exclusive events for both of those, right? Patron and sponsor, right? So yeah, donations really do help publications. Things are tough for a lot of lit magazine journals every year. And yeah, just because a lit mag journal is affiliated with the university or housed there, it doesn't mean they don't have any expenses or anything like that. Every lit mag journal does. And yeah, so yeah, I'm scrolling further down on their main page here. And yeah, so we can see here, right, the latest issue, again, a reminder, some pieces they have, right, available to read online, right? Poetry, editor's note, right, is there again. And yeah, they have a featured section here at the bottom, and a reminder to subscribe, buy, print issues, or donate. Always good to place things in more than one location, right, for sure. And a reminder to sign up for the newsletter. So they have a news and events section again, right? And yeah, awards section. And yeah, so they hold a lot of really cool events, it looks like in the past. And I think that's really cool, right? Get togethers, publications have are a lot of fun. And yeah, so we'll go to the awards section. So past awards given by AGNI, right? It says AGNI does not currently run contests or give prizes. So yeah, that's a note here. But yeah, they've had things like that, right, in the past. So that's cool. And that's pretty much it. I think I've covered everything on Agni's website. Maybe not every single thing, but yeah, they have conversations again, right? Explorations of invention, how experience, perception, and insight become the thing they call art, right? And they have featured pieces, right? And yeah, fiction, right? Essays, right? And yeah, fiction showing here character entangled in circumstance, revelations of language, and self under pressure. And then it, featured again, and again, a portfolio reminder, and from the archive. So they remind others, to check out different parts of their website and publication series, right? So yeah, really cool. So I think that's pretty much it, right? And covered essays, right? Threads followed and obsessions engaged, the charting of the labyrinth. I keep saying that's pretty much it, and then I keep clicking on things. I'm so sorry. But yeah, really cool from the archive again. So a great layout, very clean and organized. Yeah, so they have their mission statement, all the genres about the history, right? And yeah, how to contact them, and all of that, right? And yeah, so at the very, very bottom, they have, Boston University, right? The logo there. And follow Agni on Blue Sky on Instagram and Agni on Facebook, right? Social media links at the very, very bottom. And yeah, so that's pretty much it, right? So I think it's a very clean layout. And again, it's everything's super easy to find. They have a search as well, right? And yeah, so it's not like you're hunting for things, right? Everything is super easy to navigate and locate. So yeah, everything's super easy to locate and navigate. And yeah, the one thing I would say, I didn't really expect the submit to be under the contact section, That would be my one comment on the site, but everything is very clean and organized. So that'd be my only comment. I wouldn't really expect, it to be umbrellaed under, the contact section, right? The submit section and button, right? I would expect it to be like a main button, or yeah, somewhere, even up here, maybe, right? Submit, subscribe, donate. I think that would be better. That'd be like my one comment about the Agni site. But other than that, everything's easy to find. Again, powered by Subfolio. Agni is using Subfolio. The Lit Mag I run as well. Dippity, right? There we are, right? We also use Subfolio. we're not open at the moment, of course. I'm on a little bit of a break, right? And doing the series too and other things with a relaunch. So not quite open yet, but eventually we will get there. So just doing these episodes in the meantime, other things, and yeah, but I will totally, if you're interested about my lit mag dippity, right, I will share when we're back open. We can see AGNI is open, right? 2 open calls. Again, I just covered those portfolio, right, proximity, writing and art, women of color ones. So do check it out. And yeah, tons of other lit mags, right, have joined Subfolio, and not all of the ones listed here open recalls or anything like that, but you can see some really cool publications. I really love the Discover page that Subfolio has. You can see, right, the logo, the names of the lit mags on this page. You can find submission calls right here, filter, right, by no fee even. And again, Agni from time to time, it looks like they do have no fee calls, right? So, not every single call they have is a fee, right, involved. And yeah, so that's nice, right, that they do that. And yeah, so really cool, right? And yeah, everything's organized, all their guidelines reiterated, right? You can find the guidelines on their site. You can find it, also through reminders all through Subfolio and the categories. And they have payments and rights outlined, very clear and specified, right? So yeah, so I think that's pretty much it. So yeah, totally. If you're interested, if you're listening to this, totally, you can, create a Subfolio account if you're interested, right? And check out some of the other calls of the other lit magazine journals. And, if you're specifically interested in Agni, right? They have a notify me, you can subscribe to that to get you can select that, right? And sign up for alerts, when they're open for calls or other ones besides the ones here, right? Yeah, so just keep that in mind, right? Again, these particular calls, right? So again, these particular calls, right, are for. So again, these particular calls, it's for portfolio gathering women writers and artists of color from around the world, right? We're committed to using their voices through written or visual art, right? And yeah, so just keep that in mind. So yeah, if you're not eligible for these calls they have, right, sure, you could sign up, still create an account and get notified about Agni's future calls, and just keep in the loop on that. Again, they have their, regular submission period, right? Typically is September 1st through May 31st. And again, right, a month on break from December 15th through January 15th, right? Yeah. So yeah, so they'll definitely have, some more upcoming calls in the future. Agni's been running pretty strong, right, for over 5 decades. So that's awesome. And you can see they do a lot of different things, right? They have donations, right? They have right advertising on their site as well, a few other things they're doing, right? They hold events, right? So you can do a lot for Lit My Journal. They have a wide range of diverse calls, print issues. They also have Agni Online. So it's a very, very organized setup that they have established, right? Very structured and scheduled out, yeah. So totally pick up some past issues of Agni, or check out maybe a subscription if you're interested, or anything like that, or just read Agni Online, right? There are a lot of free pieces available to read, really cool, reviews, conversations, poetry, essays, fiction pieces. So a lot you can read, totally. And again, that's agnionline.bu.edu. That's edu, right? And that's agnionline.bu.edu, right? On their website. And yeah, so just wanted to cover it, right? And you can see here there's chapbook review and other things here, right? So I think I've covered all of their website, or a majority of it, right? You get the gist of it. And yeah, Agni has been absolutely a long-standing, literary arts magazine in existence. So definitely want to take the time to cover it and give an example of another publication besides Dippity, right? That's using Subfolio, and for besides Dipty that's using Subfolio, for submission calls. And that past episode, do listen back to it. I covered a fairly new submission management system again too, Dapple. And on this podcast, quite a few publications were using Submittable, right? But A lot of alternatives to submittable again, came out in 2025 specifically, right? Subfolio, Dapple, Ola, even. And yeah, Subfolio is probably my fave thus far. Really love the customization you can do with it and everything. It's really a nice landing page, very clean, very organized for category calls. Um, you're not restricted to. There's very few. You don't feel limited on Subfolio for calls, right? So yeah, I would recommend. If you're thinking about starting a lit mag, if you're thinking about starting a lit mag journal, totally check out Subfolio. A submission management system, right? They have a lot of flexible plans, and yeah, um, so Agni's using it, of course, right? Because William Pierce, right? Liam Pierce, they're related, right? Liam Pierce is William's son, but yeah, but yeah, all in all, I think it's a much better experience. All in all, I think it's a much better experience than submittable, right? In my opinion, but that's just me. Tons of options out there. Do listen to other podcast episodes on submission man systems I've covered too. And yeah, so I hope this episode helped you, me going over Agni. I don't always cover, long-standing lit mags or journals or anything like that. I've covered a mix of some fairly new ones that started or have been around a year or 2 years. So a mixture on this podcast just to give examples of different setups and structures. I think it definitely helps, especially if you're going to start your own lit mag journal, or if you're a submitter listening to this, it may help me just going over the guidelines with you maybe and talking through things, right? And reminders of things, so for sure. Yeah, if you're a writer artist, it may help me just talking through things, for sure. And yeah, so that's pretty much it. I really like their portfolio series. That's really unique and distinct too, and really some cool art selections for the covers for sure. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I've got nothing else to really say, in terms of that. Obviously, it'd be great if every lit magazine journal had zero fees, and things like that. But $3 again, not too bad. Again, they do have fee-free opportunities now and then. It looks like as well, and they do have the option to mail in, submissions. But for the most part, I think nowadays most people just use, electronic submissions, right, or send in things through a submission man system and things of that nature. We're used to that now, but yeah, that's pretty much it. Oh, and one more thing before I officially sign off for just this episode, want to point out. So on Agni's site, now this may get cut off in my screen share, but in the bottom right hand corner, they have a back to top feature. So I really do like websites that have that, especially when you're reading rather long pieces, right, that have been published. So if we scroll all the way down here, right, and I click the back to top button in the bottom right hand corner, right, it just elevators back up, right to the top again. So a great feature there of the site. And one more thing, I promise, one last thing. So under the contact section of Agni, right, and we'll see here, right, in newsletter, right, that section, right. I don't know if you guys caught this, but they have their privacy policy right here too, like a link to it. So yeah, a lot of lit magazine journals do have terms and conditions, privacy policies, especially presses, right, when you're dealing with shipments or anything of that nature, payments, or using different platforms. Even submission management systems have their own privacy policies. A lot of different systems we interact with, right, software even, right, various social media platforms have policies, right. So I think oftentimes still a lot of people today, they don't really read those policies, but it is important to look at those, especially when you're interacting with a place that is dealing with your personal information, as I mentioned on a couple podcast episodes, to look at that from time to time. For the most part, the wording is pretty much the same in some areas, but not always. Some places out there, so you want to just be cautious about that, right? So yeah, they have everything really super organized again on Agni. Again, that's AGNI. Check it out, agnionline.bu.edu. And yeah, tons of issues, right? So totally, if you're interested, you could pick up an issue or just read some of the Agni Online pieces as well. So you have an option to do that. And that's pretty much it. Yeah. So again, they're on Subfolio. other publications around the discover on this discover page as well. So check it out sometime. Again, that's subfolios.com / discover, and subfolios.com, right, / discover. And yeah, it'll take you out to, all the organizations and listings that are here, right, whether it be a magazine or press. And yeah, very cool. So that's all, guys. Take care. I hope this episode helped you. And yeah, wishing you a great start to the new year again. Yeah.